Hi, this is Phil Shapiro in Tacoma Park. I recently finished reading this very interesting book, The First 60 Years, The History of African American Musical Theater and Entertainment, 1865 to 1930, by Ronald Smokey Stevens. Smokey Stevens is a DC native, a performing artist whose career spans almost 50 years. And this was a passion project of his to record the history of performing arts in the African American community over those formative early years. Here's Ronald Smokey Stevens. He's an actor, a dancer, a book author, documentary producer. So we have a name for that in the English language. We call it a polymath. Somebody who excels at many fields is called a polymath. And I've met Ronald Smokey Stevens. I would say he is a polymath. I grabbed this from his website. Ronald Smokey Stevens, recipient of the NAACP 11th Annual Theater Arts Award. He began his professional training career at the DC Black Repertory Company. And you can go and read more of it there. He appeared in Bubbling Brown Sugar. I remember that. That was a big production in the 1970s in New York City. I remember seeing posters of that everywhere on the buses in the subways. He also has performed in several movies, including The Wiz with Michael Jackson, The Cotton Club, and you can read more about him at www.smokeystevens.com. So here's some of the strengths of this book. It's written by someone whose performing arts career overlaps with several of the historical figures in the book, such as Cab Calloway, who Smokey has worked with. The facts in the book were carefully researched at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture at the New York Public Library. So Smokey has a strong scholarly foundation for the book. The book's mission parallels the book and movie called Hidden Figures, to shine a spotlight on the great talent that history overlooked. So history has overlooked some great talent, and this book performs the same function as Hidden Figures in a different kind of way. Candidly discusses and explains the racism. So some of the stuff in the book is quite stunning and important for everyone to read about how difficult it was for African Americans in the performing arts field in the early days. It was almost like salmon swimming upstream at the Niagara Falls. There were so many different hurdles and forces against them. Illuminates the subject for all interested in learning more about. So I don't work in the performing arts field, but I found the book very interesting. So here's the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture at the New York Public Library. You should familiarize yourself with this website at some time. It's really great that the New York Public Library does this. And let me show you some little excerpts from the book now. I grabbed this poster, the Bubbling Brown Sugar. That's the poster I remember seeing on buses and in the subways of New York City. It was plastered everywhere. And I'll read just a little here. My first exposure to my entertainment history occurred when I performed in my first Broadway production, Bubbling Brown Sugar. I knew about the black writers of the past like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, W.B. Du Bois, and others through my training at the DC Black Repertory Company. However, in this production, I got the opportunity to meet and work with all these very important, interesting people, including Cab Calloway. And so that's interesting. The book goes all the way back to even before the Civil War. And he talks about the racism back then was just so widely prevalent. During this minstrel period, white performers exploited on stage the inhumane living conditions of African American slaves for their amusement. So, blackface makeup. And then it talks about the emergence of the performing arts field in the African American culture, the Georgia Minstrels from Cincinnati. There was a touring troupe, and they went all the way to Germany. So they toured in the United States, and they went all the way to Germany. And that was Charles Hicks organized that. Ma Rainey was queen of the Colored Tent Show, And listen to how successful she was. When Ma Rainey became more successful, she even owned her own railroad cars, one for her and the other for the show members. So that was so interesting. The Whitman Sisters, Mabel, Essie, Alberta, and baby Alice, female black entertainers who produced their own performing company which traveled across the United States from 1900 to 1943. They became a crucible of dance talent in black vaudeville. So interesting. And then Sherman H Dudley, who for me is the most interesting figure in this whole book. Over here, I love this. I love Smokey Stevens' turn of phrase. Nothing smells sweeter than the aromatic scent of success. And after S.H. Dudley embarked on his Dudley circuit, many white owners embraced this scent. That's such a lovely sentence. So interesting, the way it's delivered. So this is called the Theaters Owners and Booking Association, called the Toba Circuit. So Sherman H. Dudley was the person that I found the most interesting and the person I'd like to be reading more about. Then at the end of the book, Smokey Stevens assembles all the different theaters, the black-owned and operated theaters from 1910 to 1930. And so it tells you the towns they were in and the kind of shows. So this is really helpful for people who want to go beyond this book in scholarship in this field to track down and find some of the stories of these theaters. So who is this book appropriate for? The writing in this book is accessible, so the book would be equally at home in a public library as well as a college library. This book could serve as a textbook for high school or college level students. It's a book that would be of interest to anyone pursuing a career in the performing arts. There are lessons to be learned from the chapters of this book. And I should mention that I don't work in the performing arts, but I found the book really fascinating. Weaknesses of this book. There are a few weaknesses in this book. The length of the book could be longer, but this book provides the foundation for other scholars to expand upon. More of the author's own personal stories in his performing arts career would have made the book stronger, but that might have detracted from its scholarly nature, which is informed by but not centered upon his career. So I think the author made the right choice that this is not a book about his life. It's a book about this very interesting history, which happens to be in his field of expertise. So I would love to see this book used at the newly formed Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts at Howard University. This book could become a textbook for a class, and Smokey Stevens might be a very effective and interesting professor for that class. After I finished this review, I asked Smokey Stevens, where do people buy your book? And he told me Barnes & Noble sells it. So if you're interested in buying this book, you can go to barnesandnobles.com and just search for Ronald Smokey Stevens. You'll quickly find it, and you can purchase the book. I suggest you recommend that your own public library purchase a copy of this book. This is a book that needs to belong in public libraries around the country. So, book review by Phil Shapiro, that's me. I created this book review using ScreenFlow on my Mac. I also make book reviews using Simple Screen Recorder on my Linux computer, my Linux laptop. Here's how you can reach me, email and Twitter. If you want to see more of my book reviews, sites.google.com/site Phil Shapiro Book Reviews. Gracious thanks to Women in Film and Video. That's the organization where I first met Ronald Smokey Stevens. And if you want to keep up with Smokey Stevens' creative work, which continues to be very active, go to his website, smokeystevens.com. Thanks.